Masechet Sukkah at 41. We begin by completing the discussion of Shivi'it laws, and then we're going to get to the next Mishnah, which is about taking Lulav in the Bet HaMikdash. And finally, the next Mishnah after that is about a custom that they used to have of holding the Lulav all day long. And we're going to see some actually very important and practical halachot that come from that. So we begin here with the more difficult and technical part. As we introduced last time, any fruit that you pick on during the Shemitah year has Kiddushat Shavi'it, which means you have to consume it during that year, and you cannot do commerce with it, buy it and sell it. However, you are allowed to do a limited commerce. You can buy and sell, you can open a store, but you can just do a little for your friend. And if you do that, then let's say you sell some fruit of Shavi'it, that money becomes also gets Kiddushat Shavi'it. The original fruit always remains having Kiddushat Shavi'it. It never leaves the original fruit, and then it transfers also to the money. However, after that, if I take that money and then I buy meat with it, so then the Kiddushat Shavi'it transfers to the meat and leaves the money, and can use the money to buy anything I want. And so we saw a machloket. The machloket was this kind of transfer. Does it take effect only with a transaction through either barter or buying and selling? Or can Kiddushat Shavi'it transfer also by making a declaration? So let's say I sold some Shavi'it and now I have money with Kiddushat Shavi'it. And I want to transfer the Kiddushat to some meat that I have in my refrigerator. Can I just say this Kiddushat will be transferred and it leaves the money and goes to the meat? All right, is that enough? Or does it only take effect if I go and buy meat and actually have a transaction? That was the subject of a machloket between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Elazar was more restrictive, and he said only through transaction. Rabbi Yochanan says, I agree that it works through transaction, but I think it also works through declaration. Each side had a braita that backed them up. Rabbi Elazar had a braita here that talks about a case when someone lakach perot shavi'it basar ve'elu ve'elu mitbarim shavi'it, and then he took that basar and he bought dagim, and then he changed it for yain, and he keeps bartering. Not sure why he gives so many examples. Didn't have to give that many, but anyway, we get the point. And everything on the list here is that he bought this and sold this. He exchanged one for the other. So that we bring as a proof for Rabbi Elazar that since every single example is lakach, therefore it has to be done through a transaction. Okay, now it doesn't say so explicitly, maybe it just happened to be the case. So we're going to see that there'll be a refutation today, but so far that was the proof for Rabbi Elazar. And then we brought another braita for the proof for Rabbi Yochanan, because there it says both Shavi'it and Maaser Sheni mitchalelin al behema chaya ba'of. You can redeem it with meat. Now, how could you do that? So it says mitchalelin, and it compares Shavi'it to Maaser Sheni. So we see from there that it seems to be an equivalence. So just like a Maaser Sheni, you can, even the first time, you can transfer it. You don't have to do it with a barter. You can just transfer it. So too with Shavi'it would be the same, since it's comparing the two, and that was a proof for the Rabbi Yochanan that even through declaration it also works. Okay, good. So that was what we said before, and now we're going to see two interpretations of that machloket. And uses the word mitchaladin up there in that braita. Okay, now we're going to see two interpretations of the machloket, saying that the machloket is actually limited to a certain case. So here's the first interpretation. Amarav Asher, machloket b'fri rishon, ava b'fri sheni divrei hakol ben derech mikach ben derech chilul. That the machloket between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan only applies to the initial transaction, and in that case, Rabbi Elazar says you can only transfer the Kiddusha from the original fruit to the money if it's a transfer, buying or selling. And Rabbi Yochanan says no matter what, either way. But after that, once I have that money, and now I want to take that money and transfer it to the meat in my refrigerator, even Rabbi Elazar would agree that that's okay. The machlokes is only on the first step, not on any of the subsequent steps. That's Rav Asher's thesis. Now you can ask, what about that braita that we just brought? The first one, as a proof for the Bielazar, and every example on there was always buying, or trading, right? And they never said anything, even after the second step. Oh, that's only because it's continuing. The first step has to be a barter, has to be a purchase. And so the second step, the steps after that actually could theoretically be a transfer by declaration. But since you started off with the word lakach, just for clarity's sake, just for consistency, it said lakach throughout. And therefore, that baraita is consistent with this interpretation of Rav Asher. All right, good. So now we have a challenge to Rav Asher. Iti behed avina Rav Asher. Mi sheyesh lo sela shel shevi'it ubikesh lekach bo chaluk kesad ya'aseh. Let's say I had money. Originally I had some produce. I had some produce, right, of shevi'it. I sell it, and now I get money. This money now has kedushat shevi'it. I can technically only use it to buy food that I'm going to eat during that year. But let's say I want to buy a shirt with it. So how can I get around the problem and so I can be able to buy whatever I want? You go to a store owner who you have trust with him. Says, I want to buy some fruit from you. And so you do that. So you give him the money, and now you have the fruit. In that case, the Kedushat Shavi transfers from the money to the fruit. Only the fruit is Kadosh, and that money that he has is not Kadosh. Then you tell the store owner, this fruit that I just bought, I give it to you as a gift. So then you give it to him, and the store owner has to make sure it has Kedushat Shavi'it, but presumably the store owner, he's selling all the time, so right, he'll get rid of his goods, and someone will eat it. And he in turn agrees to give you the money back as a gift. Now that money, already the Kedusha of Shavi'it left that money. So now he gives it to you as a gift, and now you can go and buy whatever you want. So that's how to do it. That's the Braita. Now here's the question. Now this is a case of secondary Kedusha, because this is money that I bought that there was, the original Kedusha is only on fruit, so this is already secondary. And why can't I just stay at home and say that the Kedusha of this money will be on the meal I'm about to eat, right? And then make it simple. Why do I have to do this whole concoction of going to the store owner and doing all this? So you see that it only works, even if the second stage, it only works through Mekach Memkad and not just by making a declaration. So this is a challenge to Rav Asher. So instead, we reinterpret what Rav Asher meant. So this is the second understanding of the machloket. Ela amar Rav Asher, machloket befri sheni, ava befri rishon, debra kol derech mikachin, derech hilul la. This interpretation is much more restrictive than the first, that the whole machloket between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan was only from the second stage on. But the first stage, everyone agrees. Even the Rabbi Yochanan would agree that it's only through buying and selling and not through a declaration. And what about the second proof that we brought for Rabbi Yochanan, the second braita we brought yesterday? That was a proof for Rabbi Yochanan, because it says Shavi'it is the same as Maaser Sheni. So that means both of them, you can do Chilul. What about that? My Shavi'it, Demesh Shavi'it. Or when it says Shavi'it, it doesn't mean the produce itself that you can do by Chilul, but rather the money that you are already used to buy something from for Shavi'it. That is the money that you can use, and you can do Chilul. So it's only from the second stage on, and therefore that would be a proof for Rabbi Yochanan that the second stage on you can. But the original produce, no one thinks that you can use do Chilul with it. And how do we know that that's true? In the parallel case of Maaser Sheni has to be redeemed with money, because the pasuk says that you will bind up the money in your hand and then take it. So the first step has to be money. After you transfer kedusha of Maaser Sheni to money, then you can transfer it to other items like meat. But the first step has to be money. And yet, in that case, it said, if you want to do it to meat, Can it be a live animal, all right, or a dead animal? Remember, we said male, female, bird. And so, therefore, by definition, that's talking about a secondary, and that's talking about the money that you already redeemed it with money, and now the money you want to redeem with something else. So, what kind of things can you do it with? So, since that's true for Maaser, it's talking about the money that you already used to redeem. Here too has to be the money of Shavi'it that we're talking about in that Baraita. So this is our conclusion, and the truth is that the conclusion makes a lot of sense. Because according to the first interpretation, you would be able to transfer by declaration, according to Rabbi Yochanan, even the first step. But there's no reason why you would ever do that at the first step, because the Kedusha remains on the fruit, and now you're just going to transfer it to something else, and now have two things of Kedusha. You would only ever want to do that because you have to change the hands. And I want that fruit, and so I'll give you the money, and then that becomes, and then they both become kadosh. Okay, good. So that concludes that Mishnah, and now we get to the very important Mishnah. Barishona haya lulav nital b'mikdash shiv'a u'b'medina yom echad. At first, the lulav etrog was taken in the Bet HaMikdash all 7 days, but outside the Bet HaMikdash, there's machloket if that means the rest of Jerusalem or the outskirts of Jerusalem or wherever it is, only 1 day. Why would we say that? Because it says Ulkachtem lachem bayom harishon. The beginning of the pasuk says on the first day. Everyone has to take on the first day, and then the end of the pasuk says Uspachtem lifnei Hashem shivat yamim. So 7 days you enjoy it and shake the lulav before Hashem. Before Hashem means in the Bet HaMikdash. So therefore, in the Bet HaMikdash, all 7 days, otherwise only 1 day. Now, Mishechareh Bet HaMikdash, Itkin Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shilulav Nita B'Medina Shiv'a Zechel HaMikdash. Once the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, so theoretically, nobody would any longer take lulav from days 2 to 7, because there is no Bet HaMikdash. And Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was the great leader and visionary of the time, he's the one that snuck out of the walls against the rebels and met with Vespasian and said, so he set up the congregation of sages in Yavne, and he saw that we may be living in exile for a long time. So we have to set up the halacha so that we can accommodate that and not lose out these mitzvot. So we don't want to have nobody taking lulav. Therefore, he made a takana that even outside the Bet HaMikdash, midrabanan, everyone will take lulav all 7 days as a remembrance for the mikdash, and that way we know when we come back to the Bet HaMikdash that we will do it again. Since we mentioned one takana, we mentioned another one, a takana of his, Shehei Yom Hanef Kulo Asur. Yom Hanef. This is the second day of Pesach, the day on which we bring the Omer. The way that would work is the night before, some people would go out to the field and cut some barley, and they would bring it to the Bet HaMikdash, and then on the 16th of Nisan, the second day of Pesach, they would take it and wave it. As soon as it's waved, from that point on, everyone in the world can eat from the Hadash, from any of the new grain that grew that entire year. So in the time of the Bet HaMikdash, when can you start eating from the new grain? The second the Kohen does it. If he does it at 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, right, whenever he does it, if you're there and you're watching, then immediately you can go home, take some new grain, bake some masot, and eat it. Good. Now the Bet HaMikdash is destroyed. Now what are we going to do? We're not bringing the Omer. Nevertheless, you can eat Chadash after that day, but from when? The beginning of the day or the end of the day? So theoretically, it should be from the beginning of the day, because you're not going to bring an Omer anyway, right? And there's no sacrifice anyway. So therefore, just bring it in the day. But Rabban Gamliel said, no, let's wait till the end of the day, push it off. And the Gemara will explain why. Okay, Gemara. So we mentioned that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai made this takana in memory of the Bet HaMikdash. What's the source that we should do things to remember the Bet HaMikdash? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kera ki a'ale arucha lachu mimakotaych erpaech ne'um Adonai ki nidacha kare'u lach Sion hi doresh en la. Pasuk says from Yirmiyah, I will restore health unto you, I will heal your wounds. because you have called, they have called you an outcast. She is Sion, there is none that seek her. So the end of the pasuk, you see, says it's a terrible thing if nobody is seeking out Yerushalayim. Doresh and la mikela deba derisha. So we see that people should seek out Yerushalayim. We should do things to remember Yerushalayim. And we have a widespread custom today that if you build a house, you leave some section unpainted to remember Yerushalayim. I had a painter recently, he painted the whole house, and at the end, I made a whole list of things that he made mistakes on. He made it crooked, he forgot to paint something, so he wasn't Jewish, he was a Greek, but he knew this halacha, and he says, don't you have a law that you have to remember the Bet HaMikdash? So I left you a lot of things to remember the Bet HaMikdash. So he did me a great favor, so I have a lot of places all over the house, and we're very machmir on this. Okay. Yom Henef. My ta'ama mehera yibane bet hamikdash veyomeru eshtakad milo achalnu beha'ir mizrach hashtaname nechul. So why did the Bircha Mehmet Zakai make the takana to wait till the end of the day? You could have just started eating from the new grain at the beginning of the day, since there's no omer anyway. So the answer is because hopefully soon the Bet HaMikdash will be built any year. Never know when it's going to happen. And then if it's built this coming year, people are going to say, last year, when did we eat from the new grain? Right at sunrise. So this year also we can eat at sunrise. And they're not going to realize that, no, it's not true. That last year was only because there was no Bet HaMikdash. So that's why we did it at sunrise. But this year there is a Bet HaMikdash. So now you got to bring the Omer. You have to wait till whenever they bring the Amid, whenever, anytime, whatever time it is during the day. So therefore, we're going to push it off in all years now to the end of the day so that we don't make that mistake. Okay. And in the future generation, not going to realize that last year there was no Bet HaMikdash, and that's why I went by sunrise. And now this year there is a Bet HaMikdash. We have to wait for the Amid. Okay, so that's the reason. Now we're just going to analyze this even further. When exactly is Bet HaMikdash going to be built? If it's being built on the 16th, okay, we're assuming that the Bet HaMikdash is going to be built within 1 hour. Maybe this is like a modular building. You know those buildings, they bring all the pieces together and just put it together in 1 day. Or maybe it's talking about the third Bet HaMikdash, it will come down from heaven miraculously. Or maybe this is more of a theoretical exercise. Okay, either way, assuming it is built very quickly, if it's built on the 16th itself, then that morning there was no Bet HaMikdash. So as soon as it would be sunrise, it would be permitted, because you wouldn't be able to bring the Omer that year anyway, because the Bet HaMikdash is being built too late in the day. So that wouldn't be a problem. If it was already built on the 15th, then you shouldn't have to wait till the end of the day. So just say midday. Why? When the Bet HaMikdash was up, if you were there in the Bet HaMikdash, you can see the Kohen when he waves it, then you can go home. If you live far away and you can't see it, you can assume that midday, the Kohen already took care of it, because the Bet Din's there and they're making sure to do everything right away. This is like, when selling the chametz at the end of Pesach, right? The rabbis are going to make sure to buy it back, within a half hour. So you can assume that in a half hour they already did it. So therefore, if you're far away, you can assume that they did it already at midday. So that should apply also to this case. If the Bet HaMikdash was built on the 15th, and even if you're not there and you don't see exactly, why do you have to wait the whole day? Just wait half the day. So we're still left without an answer. Here's the answer. Maybe it was built at night, the night of the 16th. In other words, between the 15th and 16th. Or maybe right before the 16th, right, the 15th at the end of the day near sunset. In that case, everybody's going to be busy with the building of the Bet HaMikdash, and they're not going to have so much time to go out and cut the Omed and then bring it the next day on time as they usually would. And therefore, since they might not bring it on time, they might bring it late in the day, and so you have to wait the entire day. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, Rabban Yochanan Zakai b'shitat. So that's all one answer. Okay, that's so that because it might be built in the coming year during that time and in the middle of the night, and then we're not going to be prepared with the barley offering. And then that year and if we do it in the morning, then they'll forget that the previous year was only because there was no Bet HaMikdash, and now there is a Bet HaMikdash, so now they have to wait. How long do we wait? Well, maybe it was built in the middle of the night, and they didn't get a chance to do the Omed until late during the day. So that's why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said every year until the Bet HaMikdash is built, we have to wait the entire day. Okay, now a second answer to that entire thing. According to this answer, it's not midrabanan that really you could do it from sunrise, but we're machmir midrabanan. Instead, we're following Rabbi Yehuda, who thinks, in fact, the entire day is prohibited. Dichtiv ad ha'esem hayom hazeh ad itzumo shel yom v'kasabar ad v'ad bichlal. In the Torah it says, v'lechem v'kali v'kalmel, all the new grain, you cannot eat ad until this day. When you say until, does that include that day? The Yehuda says yes, it includes that day. You cannot eat from the new grain until the end of the day. And that applies all the time and any year. And therefore, the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is just saying what the law is according to the Torah. Good. Hold on. Does Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai agree with Rabbi Yehuda? We see that he disagrees. The Tanya, it says that he made a takana. So takana sounds like it's a rabbinic decree. And Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with him and says, no, it's from the Torah. From that conversation, if Rabbi Yehuda says from the Torah, isn't it clear that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai meant that thought it was the Rabbanan? So how can you say that they agree? This Baraita, they disagree. The answer is Rabbi Yehuda hu de kata'eh. Rabbi Yehuda made a mistake and he misinterpreted what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying. Hu sabar midrabanan kamar, velo hi midoraita kamar. He thought that when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, I'm going to make a takana, that he was doing it midrabanan. And that's why he said, isn't it Oraita? But he clarified, no, I meant Oraita. I'm just making a takana. From now on, we're gonna make it the whole day, which is according to the Torah. Okay. Wait a second. It says hitkin, which sounds like a takana. That sounds like a Rabbanan. No, my hitkin, darash v'hitkin. Hitkin, we don't mean that he made it of himself, but rather he interpreted the pasuk. Oh, this pasuk now applies. And then hitkin means he just announced that we will follow with that deoraita law. All right, and now next Mishnah, Yom Tov Harishon Shel Chag Shechal Liot Be-Shabbat. Okay, in the bet nowadays we do not take lulav on Shabbat, even if it's the first day. Okay, but in the Bet HaMikdash, there was no reason not to. We're afraid people are going to carry it and things like that. But in Bet HaMikdash, we don't worry about that, and they would bring it even on Shabbat. Now, still the problem is, how can they carry it? כל העם הולכים נטלו לבהן לבית הכנסת, למחרת משכימין ובאים. כל אחד ואחד מכיר את שלו ונוטלו. So what they would do is everybody would bring their lulavim to the Bet HaMikdash before Shabbat, leave it there, and then during the day they would come and they would recognize their lulav and etrog. It's a little hard to recognize, they kind of all look the same, but maybe they had different different markers on them. Bands. The gold bands, exactly, different designs, and they would take their own. Why do they have to take their own? Because you cannot fulfill your obligation with someone else's lulav. Lachem, you have to own your own lulav on the first day. So therefore, you got to go and make sure you recognize and take your own. On the other days, it doesn't matter. You just have a lot of lulavim etrogim there, and then you brought one, take another one. Someone else will take yours. It doesn't matter. Rabbi Yosef Omer. That was all Tanakama. Rabbi Yosef says, Yom Tov Harishon Shel Chag. שחל להיות בשבת ושכח והוציא את הלולב לרשות הרבים פטור מפני שהוציאו ברשות. So he says if the first day does fall out on Shabbat and that you forgot, the best thing is that you're supposed to have taken it to the Bet HaMikdash before Shabbat. But if you forgot, you didn't realize, and you start and you carry it in the Reshut HaRabim, even on Shabbat, patur, you don't get you're not liable because you had permission. permission that you meant to do a mitzvah. Okay, it's not really clear how far he's going. Is he saying that you can like do this lechatechila? Nobody interprets it that way. It means b'di'avad. If you forgot and you forgot to bring it, and you forgot that you're not allowed to bring it, and you just automatically saw lulav and you bring it to shul. There's always one guy, even today on Shabbat, right? That you see them, they bring love. Oh, you're not supposed to bring it. they didn't know, they forgot. So nevertheless, they would not be liable because he didn't bring it out for himself. He brought it for the purpose of a mitzvah. Okay, good. Now, how do we know that you on the first day you have to own your own lulav? So the first ulkachtem that it says you should bring, but it's said in plural. That means every single person has to shake their own lulav. You can't have just the chazan do it for everyone and have everyone in mind. That doesn't work. Everyone has to take a lulav. And then lachem, mishalachem losit hashaul hagazul ulkachtem. And then the word lachem means that you have to own it, and it can't be that you borrow it, and you cannot obviously steal it. Mikan ameru chachamim en adam yoseh יוסה ידי חובתו ביום טוב הראשון של חג בלולבו של חברו, אלא אם כן נתנו לו במתנה. And therefore, Chachamim said, and the beginning of this is like the Mishnah, but then it adds yet another detail. You cannot fulfill your obligation with someone else's lulav unless he gives it to you as a gift. So that's okay. I can fulfill the mitzvah myself with my lulav and give it to you as a gift. Then it's yours. And then you can fulfill the mitzvah as well. And we have a wonderful story. Umaaseh b'Rabban Gamliel, v'Rabbi Yoshua, v'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, v'Rabbi Akiva. No, they were not making Pesach Seder together, but rather shehayu ba'im b'sfina. They were on a ship together on Sukkot. V'lo haya lulav ela Rabban Gamliel b'lbad. Rabban Gamliel was the only one that had a lulav. Why? I don't know. The others, I don't know why they couldn't get one. Shelekacho be'elev zuz, and he bought it for 1,000 zuz. That is a lot of money. It's probably like $50,000. Okay. Is it because there were none around? You could only get one for $50,000. Maybe that would explain why no one else had one, or because he wanted one that was so mehudad, and so that's why. But anyway, that's the story. So they're on the ship. There's no way for the Rabbi Akiva and the others to get a lulav. And so what are they going to do? Surprisingly, the Rabbi Akiva didn't have a lulav. Remember, he had the giant one, right, that he had held on his shoulder. So I know he was very machmir on this mitzvah. Maybe it blew away with the sukkah. Very good. So Rabban Gamliel, since it was his, he takes it first and he shakes it and he fulfills his mitzvah. Okay, now he's done for the day, so he gives it as a gift to the Yoshua. Yoshua shakes it and he fulfills the mitzvah. So Azariah gets it as a gift and he fulfills his mitzvah. After Rabban Gamliel takes it and he fulfills his mitzvah, he returned it to Rabban Gamliel. Okay, fantastic story. Now let's analyze the story. Why do you have to say that he gave it back to Rabban Gamliel? Who cares if everybody fulfilled their mitzvah that day? He doesn't have to give it back to Rabban Gamliel. On the next day, it doesn't matter who owns it, right? It could be it could be anyone's. So milta agab urhay kamashmalan matana menat lahazir shema matana. This is teaching us a tangent, side point. Not that they had to do it in this case, but in other cases, what you can do also is give it as a gift on condition that you return it. This would be good if you don't really trust the person that you're giving to, and you might give it to them, and they might run away. And this is worth, it's worth 1,000 zuz. So this will be a big problem. So if you have some doubt whether the person will actually give it back to you as a present, you can give it as a gift on condition that he returns it. Then, if he runs away and doesn't return it to you, it ends up being that he's stealing it. And he doesn't even fulfill his own mitzvah, because then there's Lulav HaGazul. So it doesn't benefit him at all. So therefore, only once he returns it, then it turns out that it was in fact his during the time that you gave it to him, and he fulfills his mitzvah. So that's like a foolproof way to make sure you don't lose your possession of your lulav. And even though it's a bit of a loophole, like there's still strings attached, it's sufficient for it to be his. Ki hada marava. He lach etrog ze amenat shechazireh li. Netalo v'yasabo. And Rava says this explicitly. If I say here's an etrog on condition that you return it to me, when he takes it and fulfills his mitzvah and then returns it, then he fulfilled it. But if he doesn't return it, then that second guy never even fulfilled his mitzvah because it was never his. Now, why is in the story? Why does it have to mention that he bought it for 1,000 zuz? What does it have to do? Even if it was a cheap lulav, it would be the same law. To teach you how beloved the mitzvot were to them, especially to Rabban Gamliel, that he would pay so much for a beautiful lulav. Okay, more on that theme of how much they love to do a mitzvah. It's interesting. See, they asked two questions on the story, but they're out of order. First, they asked on the end of the story, and then they asked something about the beginning of the story. I think they're purposely out of order to end on a note that it's going to pick up on now. So, he says, my father would pray, say the Amidah while holding the four species, right? Nowadays, we use it during Hallel and during the Hoshanot, but not during the Tefillah. The Spanish Portuguese, however, continues this custom, and we hold the Lav and Etrog during Musaf. The entire Musaf, we hold it. So it's a very beautiful custom, and we do just like Morbat Amemar's father. Now, Metibe lo yochaz adam tefillin beyado v'sefer Torah becheko b'yitpalel. Hold on, how can you do this? We have a braita that says you're not allowed to hold these various items while you're praying. You should not hold your tefillin or even a sefer Torah and pray. The reason is because you're going to be worried about holding on to it and concerned that you might drop it. And then you're not going to concentrate on your tefillah. Or you'll concentrate on tefillah and then you might drop the Sefer Torah. And you should not be holding a tefillin while one goes to the bathroom. And do not sleep while holding your tefillin, because in that case you might fall asleep and then drop them, not because of concentration. Good. V'amar Shemuel, sakin u'ka'ara kikar u'ma'ot hare elu kayose bahen. Shemuel adds other things. Don't hold a knife while you're praying Amidah, because you might drop it and the knife will fall onto your foot, and that won't be good. Or you're going to be thinking about the knife and then you won't concentrate on tefillah, or a bowl of food, or bread, or money. All these things will remove your concentration from praying. So in this case also, you're holding your lulav. Why is that allowed? It should be the same as all these other items, that you can't hold something and pray at the same time because it's too hard to concentrate. The answer is Hatam lav mitzvaninhu utrid behu. Hacha mitzvaninhu vela terid behu. All those other things, there's no mitzvah to hold a knife or a tefillin or any of these things. And therefore, you're concentrating on those things and you're not concentrating on tefillah. On this case, however, the lav is a mitzvah. So mitzvah is only going to add to your concentration of tefillah, right? You're holding the lulav, you feel so special. In the way, the waving of the lulav we saw is like a korban, right? And so that just, and the tefillah is also like a korban. So this will just increase your kavanah, and so they mesh well together. So there's no problem in doing this. Okay, this is a practical halacha l'maaseh, that you should not be holding anything while you say the Amidah, except for a sidur. If you have a water bottle, don't hold the water bottle. If you're holding a novel, you shouldn't be holding a novel while you're saying the Amidah, because it's going to remove your concentration. You're thinking about holding it, and so what am I holding? You start thinking about things, you don't want to drop it. A sidur, however, is allowed, just like a lulav is allowed, because that will enhance and help you with the mitzvah that you're doing. So it does not distracting, and it is permitted. But otherwise, you should make sure that you put down your phone, everything else, anything else that you're holding, unless the phone has a sidur on it, in which case it's okay. All right. Tanya, Rabbi Elazar bar Sadok Omer. כך היה מנהגן של אנשי ירושלים, אדם יוצא מביתו ולולבו בידו. So this is the old minhag of Jerusalem, that the men would a person would take his lulav from his house and he would walk to Bet Knesset while holding his lulav, not in a bag, in a box, right? He'd be holding it, carrying it. Say the beracha at home. The entire tefillah, even Kiryat Shema, hold the lulav. Only for these two things you put it down. For Nisiyat Kapayim, if you're a Kohen, obviously you have to pick up your hands. You can't be holding a lulav while you're blessing the people, and also reading the Torah, because you have to hold the Torah. If you're bringing it out, even while you're reading the Torah, you're supposed to be holding on to the Torah. The Ashkenazi ones, you hold on to the Atzei Chaim. The Sfaradi ones, you hold on to the case. So your hands have to be free to roll it also. So you have to be doing a lot of things with your hands, and therefore you put it down. But otherwise, all day long, you're going to visit some sick people or visit mourners. Okay, why are they mourners on the holiday? Right? It's Sukkot. Mourning breaks. If someone was a mourner before, then they stop being a mourner. If someone dies on Yom Tov, they wait till after the holiday, the entire holiday, to begin become avelim. So Rav Shirira Gaon says, talking about someone, they would be in mourning, and so people are still visiting them. So it's not technical nichum, they're not really avelim, but you still go and visit them. I wonder maybe if there was an ancient custom that if someone died on Chol Moed, maybe you would start sitting on Chol Moed. Not sure, but this is actually the second time we saw something like this. So this is worthy of investigation. Okay, but anyway, you carry your lulav the whole time. Nichnas bet midrash, meshager lavo biyad beno, biyad abdo, u biyad shilucho. Once you get to the bet midrash to study, then you give it to your son or servant and say, take it home, because now you're going to be studying. You got to concentrate on studying. You can't be holding the lulav. So for those things, you don't. But otherwise, for the tefillah, even for the amidah, they would be holding their lulav. What does all this teach us? It teaches us how vigilant they were in mitzvot, that they wanted to be able to carry the lulav all the time, all day long, no matter what they were doing. And it's similar to the way that they used to wear tefillin all day long. So too, they wanted to especially enjoy the mitzvah of lulav. Baruch Adonai L'olam, amen ve'amen.